to this video. Yeah, this video is about the Sicilian Rossolimo variation. That is, after e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, our choice to play bishop b5. Bishop b5 is the Rossolimo variation. Bishop b5 nowadays is probably the main line in this position, which is quite interesting to note, because usually it is always said that the open Sicilian is the critical choice, basically no matter what black is doing on move 2. However, after knight c6 on the second move, white players more and more shift towards this move in order to avoid some lines in the open Sicilian that they currently have trouble finding any advantage against. This is most notably the Sveshnikov. Yeah, just to show you what I'm talking about. The Sveshnikov variation is this line, and white struggles to find anything there. This is not the only reason, but the main reason why people more and more shifted towards exploring bishop b5. And bishop b5 is not just an avoidance move, let's say, that avoids something, but is rather interesting in its own right. With bishop b5, we play a very sound, healthy, developing move and prepare castling. This is a very fundamental thing to mention, but you have to see that black is not really working on his kingside development. The whole kingside is not developed at all, and we are going to be most of the time castling on move 4. So our king will be very safe, and we have a very sound development. The bishop on b5 is also taking a look at this bishop. So in some cases, we will actually take on c6 and give up the bishop pair. This is a feature, especially if black provokes this capture. We're not going to take there voluntarily all that much, but if black plays a6, for example, we will capture on c6, but we will get something in return for giving up the bishop pair, as we will see. The whole setup that white is after is very fundamentally sound. Oftentimes our next moves are castles, rook to e1, and potentially c3 and d4 to expand in the center. Black, after bishop b5, has an extremely wide range of moves. Black has tried, like everything under the sun, but don't feel too intimidated. There are actually only 2, maybe 3 main lines that need to be studied in some detail. The main lines here are the moves g6, probably the most popular, the move e6, both very logical, because black needs to develop the king side in some way, and this bishop on f8 needs some space. And the third move that is also played quite frequently is d6. d6 prepares bishop to d7 in order to recapture with the bishop and only later develop the king side. The other idea of d6 is also that it stops whites from advancing e5, so that knight f6 becomes more of an option. Those are by far the main moves. Against the offbeat tries, and we're going to look at them in the next couple of minutes, just playing healthy move is totally fine and enough for having a slight advantage, but it pays off to know some details, because you in fact get those quite a bit on the lower levels if you're not playing in a GM tournament, and most of you won't. So take a look at the rare moves. Knowing how to punish them can be quite helpful. So let's have a look at some of the rare moves first and then work towards the main continuations. In this position, black sometimes tries to avoid any doubling of pawns by playing the queen. Let's start with those. Queen to c7. This is a move that is rare. It's rare still, but it's played often again by players who want to simply make sure that they won't get any doubled pawn on the c-file. However, it is slow. Yeah, black is not developing a minor piece and does not prepare castling. Okay, we are going to castle, and now black most of the time continues with the move a6. That is the most consistent way of doing this. I get the bishop here. Okay, we are happy to take, because it's the quickest move in a way. We don't want to retreat to a meek square like e2. So we take. In this position, probably the relatively best choice, not great for black, but the relatively best choice is probably to take with the d pawn. This is not very logical in its own right. Yeah, why do all this and then take with the d pawn? It's just that taking with the queen turns out to be extremely risky. This is also better for white, d takes, but black at least won't get checkmated quickly, which could happen after queen takes. This position we will actually look at via the move 3a6. This is what we're going to look at in just a minute. So just hang on, I'm going to show you what happens after d takes e6 shortly. So queen takes is seen more often, and we just play knight c3, develop this knight and cover e4 in the process. Not that we would be very afraid of black taking this pawn and further delaying development, but knight c3 is logical anyway. So e6, and here very important, we need to open up the center now and exploit that black is completely undeveloped. So d4 is a good move. Develop. The next moves would be something like bishop f4, d5 if black does not take, but usually they do. So black takes, queen takes is also not bad, but knight takes is very logical, win another tempo, queen to c7, and now a simple move like rook e1 leads to a really great position for white. The issue is that black can hardly develop. Knight f6 is answered by e5, and this is where is the knight going now. And we have ideas like queen to g4, bring the bishop to g3 to attack the queen. I mean, black is like 3 tempi down, and it will be very tough for him to avoid an opening disaster here. The move queen c7 is in fact very risky due to this line. A similar move is the move queen to b6. This is trying to do the same thing, recapture with the queen, but attack the bishop first. So I suggest to play knight c3, simply cover the bishop, and now black most of the time plays the move e6. This is quite logical, as the move knight d5 is always in the air, as queen takes b5 is answered by this fork. So e6 makes sense, it's by far the most popular move. e6. And now I suggest to play a move that probably will surprise you a little bit. I suggest to simply take on c6. Even though black has not played the move a6, I suggest to take. The reason is that if we instead would castle, knight d4 is a little bit of an annoyance. Yeah, it is a little bit problematic to face the move knight d4 in a situation where the knight is on c3. Here we couldn't even take, as knight takes, c takes, we lose material. So I suggest to simply take on c6. Black now takes with the queen most of the time. If he should decide to take with a pawn, then after castles, our development is excellent. I just wanted to show one particular plan. If black plays something like d5 in such a position, you should be very much recognizing that those pawns, and in particular c5, is quite weak. Something like d3 in this position will lead to some substantial issues for black. It looks very tame what white is doing, but we got knight a4, b3, bishop a3 to put lots of pressure on that pawn. And in fact, quite often, this pawn will just get lost. Black can have a hard time to cover that. So this is a typical idea that you might know from the Nimzo-Indian defense. In fact, you can easily say that this is a Nimzo-Indian defense reversed, with white having about 3 extra tempi. Yeah, one move, and the queen moved around quite uselessly, so it's pretty nice for white. The c8 bishop will be a problem for a long time. I hope you enjoyed this preview of the Keep It Simple e4 repertoire. You can get the full course on chessable.com, which features the move trainer that makes it easy and simple to learn all the lies and remember them. All lines are chosen with one thing in mind: keep it simple for you and make it difficult for your opponent.